Hello, hello. This is the 151st Test from the Future, an experimental podcast from the year 2224, which we are sending from our present to yours. My name is Dirk.
And my name is Simon.
And we're putting the past in podcast. So remember us, we're the originals.
Mm-hmm. Yep, we are not the replicants this week.
Yes, it was a nice experiment, but we're back. Mm-hmm. Instead of recording last week's episode, we got to see a Swaveball match. And boy, was this nice.
It was really good. It was the first of the season. New rules.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, not just exciting that it was, back to the game after some months away.
Yeah.
But I think we mentioned in a previous episode, so in the very first episode where we talked about Swaveball, we must have spoken about how it's a combination game, kicking and cajoling of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And the talking that the players do to the ball is just between the player and the ball.
Yeah.
No one else. The audience, spectators, what is it called when people are in a stadium watching sport? All those spectators. Anyway, all those, the crowds.
Yeah, the crowd.
They cannot hear what's being said. But with this season, they've actually introduced it that now everyone can hear what the players are saying.
Mm-hmm.
That's making for a very different type of game.
And I think it was nice that we always start a season with the World Cup. So we got to see Mali versus Bangladesh, but there's been quite a few matches already. Mm-hmm. And one of the effects that you noticed immediately because of the rule changes, the match lasted way longer. 3 days, was it? That's definitely longer than it usually lasts. Huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There were many more challenges.
Yeah.
Because everyone could hear what everyone was saying, and so they'd be like, foul, that kind of stuff.
And also the audience got really excited. Huh?
Yeah.
Although you had to pay extra, or let's say in the normal league matches, I understood you had to pay extra. For these first matches, they make it available to everybody.
Right.
So you
give everyone a taste.
But then later on in the season, you have to pay. But this means that everybody could hear what was going on.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Players between each other, the spectators.
Yeah.
And this got everybody super excited. I don't think I've been to such a Swaveball match with such an excited audience.
Yeah. Excitement, of course, and then also just a lot of humor to it,
Yeah.
Like it was really funny to learn how some players, like before, you didn't know what they were saying, yeah? So you could imagine, as you liked, you could imagine they were saying something really convincing, like something really rational and well thought through, or you could imagine they were saying horribly, vile stuff, but it was up to you to imagine. And so, for example, it was really funny, the game we saw, one player, and all he was doing was just saying to the ball, to convince it to do what his team needed. He just kept saying to the ball over and over, I love you, I love you, I love you. And it was like no subtlety of anything. And it was more like a denial of service, not a brute force attack. It was just basically kept saying that to convince the ball that the ball also loved him, and then it would do what his team wanted. So that kind of... I didn't actually imagine... I mean, that's not the kind of thing I've said in the games I play, so but it was funny to hear professionals,
You can also, as a good point, especially as like an amateur player, you can then get a whole bunch of ideas from how the professionals are doing,
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting where, because you could hear what was going on, the audience started to yell and join in.
Exactly, trying to convince and that also did introduce some delays, at least the very first day, because, they needed to adjust the microphone on the Swaveball. Okay, actually just listen to the players, don't listen to all the chants from the stadium. And
also then a lot of people brought these hologram projectors, so they were projecting all kinds of things up in the air for the different teams and so on, and all at the same time, so especially...
A lot of overlap, yep.
Yeah, exactly. If you looked at the air above the field... I think also because usually the Swaveball matches are with 4 teams. These are World Cup matches that are 2 teams. Mm-hmm. This also makes the match slower, I think. Mm-hmm. At least
less hectic.
Yeah, exactly. But then also made it slower. They also made it last longer. Mm-hmm. And then afterwards there were the rumors.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Which doesn't make so much sense because everyone could hear what was being said. But anyway, there were many more accusations than usual that each team was doing bad stuff.
Yeah, that they were tampering with the ball in the field and
slipping in subliminal messages into their conversation or things like that.
Or, this time it wasn't about using telekinesis. We've had last year or the year before. That was debunked. But of course, with the anti-gravity field, you can do all kinds of things that you don't immediately notice. But nothing was proved, right? So I guess it's almost feels a little bit as part of the game.
Yeah.
And it's like swaveball. I don't think any other sports that has so many tampering rumors.
Right.
Yeah. But it was fun. And it was a really close game as well, which is probably also why it lasted so long, because it was a draw for a very long time until Mali made the deciding goal. Huh?
Yeah. Yeah, it was very, very good for us. So very kind of our replicant selves to step in for us last week. Yeah. They've already left for Mars now, so who knows when we'll see them again, but at least we got that one episode out of them.
Yeah, exactly. They left quite suddenly as well. Okay. I guess they had good reasons. Okay, so that was about the last week's swaveball match. This week we're talking about proper prompting.
Yep, PP.
Exactly, PP. So what do we mean with proper prompting?
So maybe there's some exceptions, but the vast majority of technology that we interact with, the way we interact with it is by speaking to it and effectively giving it prompts, giving it instructions. And proper prompting is the subject, so what we'll be talking about is how to give those instructions in a way that actually gets what you want as a result.
Yeah.
And of course we'll talk about, so first that part and then also how it goes wrong.
Yeah, exactly, because we have so much technology, it's quite important to be able to instruct it properly. And I guess like prompting is just a word for instructing technology or something like this. When it first came about, everybody was just randomly doing things.
Yep. The stakes were low. The technology didn't have such an impact on everyone's lives. So if you said something and the result you got was very strange or not what you intended, didn't really matter.
Yeah.
Over the decades, of course, it's expanded to be everything. And it's really important, that your teleporter sends you where you want to go. Congo makes you the food you want to eat, and so on and so on.
And especially initially, prompting was kind of considered to be another field that it would be useful to know. But with technology taking care of anything from language to maths to transport to everything, it became more and more important to actually be able to instruct technology, because if you can do this properly, everything else that you learn, you don't really need to be able to do anymore, because that's what the technology does, as long as you instruct it properly.
Yeah.
I think by now it's the most important school subject, right?
Definitely when kids start school.
Yeah.
Exactly, it's taught right from the beginning, maths, whatever your language is, and proper prompting.
Yeah, and I think with arts and prompting being the basis of everything. So arts being anything that the technology can't do, and prompting.
Exactly, right. Arts, exactly. But being when you, as a kid, you're taught how to paint, how to sculpt.
Yeah.
Exactly, because that you are creating it directly, and then for everything else, prompting.
Yeah, exactly. I quite liked it, because the field is so varied, because prompting is used for so many things. There are so many finesses, depending on the technology and the style. And
of course, there's specialization a bit later on. The really foundational stuff, of course, is clarity of thought.
Yeah.
Being able to actually think through what it is you actually want. And then, even more importantly, how to phrase that, how to state that unambiguously, clearly, so that there will be as little misunderstanding as possible.
True. And I also think that initially this is hard, because let's say you're young when you're in school, you're hungry, you want a piece of pie. You don't want to think about what is it that I really want, which nutritional value is my body actually looking forward for. I just want a pie. Yeah. And this is something that you learn as a, let's say, the hard way. It's very complicated in the beginning. It takes a long time to properly phrase what you want. But the moment you make this into your habit for everything, it gets faster and more efficient, right?
Right. And sure, that's why it is a school subject in school from the beginning.
Yeah.
When the room for disaster is lower. Like, so little kids, they'll be practicing in the class. Their teacher will be there to supervise. If they say something really, obviously say, for example, they're learning how to instruct a Congo. Okay, the Congo will have some safeguards in place. You can't actually instruct it to make poisonous food, but you can still instruct it to make something that will taste bad.
Yeah.
Inadvertently, or on purpose. And okay, learning these things at such a young age is really useful for everyone, for life, for your own personal satisfaction, but also that of everyone around you.
Yeah, I think safety is quite important, especially if you learn it from the get-go and are allowed to make innocent mistakes. Then you really get a sense of safety and security. And you mentioned before language.
Yeah,
I think that's at least for me. I still occasionally have my technology misunderstanding me, especially when I'm doing it in English.
Of course.
But this was so important.
Enunciation is really that people wanted that anyway before, but it's even more important now to be able to say words clearly. And
especially a lot of technology is super hyper intelligent, so they don't just listen to what you say, they try to interpret it. So if you're not completely clear, they guess, and they may guess right and they may guess wrong.
Yeah. Sometimes you get happy mistakes,
Yeah.
And often not.
I guess some of the biggest inventions were misprompts, I guess. You want to say something,
seems likely,
one thing. Didn't penicillin get discovered this way?
Seems really likely, yeah.
I
don't remember the full
prompt.
story. Right, someone asking for one thing, getting a different thing, and then that turning out to be the...
Yeah.
What's that stuff called again?
I think they wanted cola.
Antibiotics, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Is it antibiotics?
Exactly. I think they wanted cola, and then they got antibiotics.
Yeah.
Or they wanted cola, and they got penicillin. Or they wanted penicillin, they got cola. Anyway, something like that. Mix up, yeah. But that's what you get taught in school.
Yeah.
It sounds, let's say, medium exciting, but because it's so wide, the field. It goes from food to transport to relaxation to...
It's that part is actually, because this being clear of thought and able to speak clearly. See, here's the thing now, clearly. So clearly in terms of what you're saying.
Yeah.
And also clear in how you enunciate it. So that anyone can actually hear what you're saying correctly. Those were valued things before. It was such an important part of life to be able to give proper prompts. But now there's a real tactile feedback mechanism. As a kid, you're told this is important. Maybe you don't really care about it in the previous centuries, but now you really do care about it.
Yeah. Although I have to admit that I've definitely had phases where I was less disciplined about it. And
sometimes reckless, sometimes like, you know what, I don't want to be precise.
Yeah.
I'll just say something super generic and see what happens.
Yeah, exactly. Or maybe you're tired or you didn't think about it. And it's like...
And then you leave room for at least a potential delight.
Yeah, okay. For me, it's mostly laziness.
Sure.
And especially because it requires a little bit of effort. And you don't put that in. It requires a lot of effort often to correct maybe what was...
Can do, yeah.
But to make it maybe a little bit more understanding, we thought of some bad prompting examples that we've experienced in the past.
Exactly. And then sometimes maybe we'll say, what was the better way to do that?
Yeah, exactly.
If it makes sense.
And we thought we split up by technology. And I can start up with some of the teleportation as a mistakes. I'm not sure what I didn't do proper prompting when it came to teleportation. I think like a pretty standard one is where you say, or you're not specific enough. Right. Like Mallorca, it's a island with a bunch of beaches. It's a popular tourist destination.
Right, when someone says Mallorca, they're thinking of the beaches, basically.
Yeah, and I've been spontaneous with a few friends and saying, come on, let's go to the beach, And you go in and you say Mallorca, and we ended up in the mountains.
Yeah.
Apparently Mallorca has mountains.
Those two.
I don't know who goes there, but apparently they have, and they have teleporters. You want to go to the beach, you have to say you want to go to the beach.
Yeah. Right, the beach in Mallorca, for example. And then, okay, that's at least the correct place. Another issue, of course, is that some cities, some towns across the world all have the same name.
Yeah.
So, I'll say, hey, I want to go to Birmingham, intending the one in Alabama, and instead I end up in England. That kind of thing. And there are too many places which have the same name.
And then depending on, I guess, either your teleporter could say which one, here are 27, or just interpret, you probably won.
Yeah, there's a lot of inferred intent.
Yeah.
And sometimes that works out well, but sometimes really not.
I can also imagine that maybe you end up somewhere and that's exactly where you wanted to go without you doing some proper prompting, but just the artificial intelligence.
And then you don't notice it, And then you're like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm saying, oh, yeah, you think, but actually, no, you don't even think. You say where you want to go, you're there, end of it.
Yeah, you assume you did some really proper prompting. I remember at one point it was pretty cold and I was fed up with this and I wanted to go somewhere hot,
Yeah.
I ended up in a volcano.
That is hot.
Yeah, it was super hot.
Yeah.
I don't know who puts a teleporter in a volcano, but okay. So you have to specify, let's say, the temperature, the location. Because in the end, like if you want it to be, 25 degrees, it doesn't really matter if this is in Malaysia or in Oman,
Right.
But if you say somewhere hot, that's there's a lot of room for interpretation there.
There is.
So most of the time you have to just pick the exact coordinates on the map.
Sure. Which is, of course, you can just read off the numbers. You can also usually go with an address if it is a place with an address.
Yeah.
As long as you specify obviously the postcode and the country. But a more fun way is, for example, take me to that place I went last week with the bubble tea. So long as you went just one place last week where you got bubble tea, it will take you to the place you're thinking of.
That's pretty smart, actually.
Yeah. But it's not, so say you went to 3 different places, it will take you to one of them.
But how did you get to the bubble tea place the first time?
Maybe we went there with a friend, your friend took you, so it wasn't somewhere you were used to going yourself.
That's true, but you don't have to remember where that was. You don't even have to have known where it was.
Exactly, like you're saying, so coordinates, addresses, when you know those, that's great, but if you went somewhere and you didn't know that.
Maybe a friend took you by surprise and you didn't even know it was in Osaka or in Saskatchewan, and then you say, where I went last week, and you were there again. Huh. Yeah, that's teleporters. I think the next category, Congos, or food conglomerators.
Yeah.
That's probably where most of the misprompts are happening.
I think so, especially because when one does go wrong and you bite into something and it tastes so bad or at least so wrong from what you expected.
Sometimes you see it, sometimes you taste it.
Yeah. And then those things stick in your memory.
Yeah, definitely. It's I like pizza a lot.
Yep.
And sometimes I just feel like pizza. I just say pizza.
Yeah, and you get pizza.
But this can be, basically you get a round piece of dough and everything else is randomized because you can put anything on a pizza and it just puts a random collection of ingredients. This can be butter and spinach and chestnut and crisps and that's a pizza. It is a pizza and technically it's a pizza, but realistically it doesn't really taste like one.
Right. Sometimes you get really lucky with that, where it's a pizza, it looks really wrong, you can tell what ingredients there are, you're thinking, this will never work. And sometimes it does taste really good. That's very rare. Yeah.
And it's also because there are so many people with so many different tastes and there's so much pizza being eaten that you can't just say pizza and get a specific thing. For one person, this means something else as for somebody else. And the same thing if you say tasty pizza. I did that last week. I want a tasty pizza. My pizza had chocolate sauce, banana, strawberry, and vanilla ice cream.
So dessert pizza.
I guess, yeah. It was super tasty. Not what I had in mind. It was super tasty. So this was like a pleasant surprise, but it definitely wasn't what I intended.
Yeah. One thing, I mean, this whole... often the point we're making will hold for several of the technologies we're talking about. But again, like I mentioned with food, you really notice it because you taste the things.
Yeah.
And so, for example, one issue is you'll say, I want a pizza with no pineapple.
Yeah.
And, here's the word pineapple. It's like, oh, you want pineapple. And then you get a pizza with extra pineapple all over it.
Yeah.
Where you specifically said no pineapple.
Yeah, I don't know what's up with this, because because it interprets instead of reading it specifically. I'm not sure if this is translated in the background and just gets lost in translation, but this is a really typical thing. Yeah. And the thing is, if you don't specify pineapple, you order a pizza. Sometimes there's pineapple on it. You go like, oh no, I don't want this. And then you say, I want a pizza without pineapple. Then exactly happens what you're saying. It's a whole lot of extra pineapple on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I feel like pizza with pineapple.
Sure. I'm going to tie these together. So, if we had a flying car, we could go pick one up.
Ooh.
If we didn't have a Congo here in the place, but and sure, because cars, you'll order a car. Hey, I need one at 10 o'clock. And sure, but you didn't specify which time zone.
Yeah.
So it will get to your place 9, 8 o'clock maybe.
So whenever it's 10 o'clock somewhere or whatever the car setting has 10 o'clock.
Often, right, exactly, it'll be where it's dispatched from.
Exactly, and it just comes through a portal, and it's, if you don't specify, it will come at some point. You always have to specify the time zone. And also, if you're saying, I need a car, that's very generic, and I had one fly straight into my apartment.
With the car flew into it?
Yeah, exactly. Straight through the window.
The window was open?
No, it was closed.
Oh, okay.
This is many years ago now. This was when I was living in the cottage.
Right.
So this was before my pyramid apartment. But yeah, that happened. Yeah. So and of course, insurance didn't cover it because I said I need a car. I didn't specify where exactly.
I see what you mean. Right, it was delivered to your living room.
Yeah, exactly. And me being in my living room, and it didn't. I would assume it would dock at the roof. But not like that. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, that's with cars. You had any car examples? You don't use cars a lot, huh?
Not so often. I usually walk.
I had
mainly it's been the time zone issue. It's been the thing I've run into. Is when it's a car that's local, it will be obviously the same time zone. The issue is when it's a car that's come from, I don't know, from England, for example, it'll be 1 hour behind. Someone, drove it all the way here, they left it. Okay, but now it's still running on English time.
Yeah. I had it once where I ordered a car with no pineapple. And it was full of pineapple.
Yeah.
It's like if you order a car, you don't specify that, there's probably not going to be pineapple in there.
It's really unusual for there to be extra stuff like that.
Yeah. And you order a car with no pineapple, then they're going to interpret that you want pineapple in it.
Yeah.
I remember especially in the early days with PAs, there was a lot of prompting mistakes.
Yeah. Meaning with Mr. Dobalina himself?
No, like overall personal assistance. Every time I would prompt Mr. Dobalina, when I was much younger, there was always room for interpretation or misinterpretation and so on. Yeah. But this got better with every system updates that the PAs got in general. This got better, but it still happens. We still misunderstand each other occasionally. You have this also with push button?
Less so, because I mainly type. So there's less room for misunderstanding, but occasionally.
Okay. I remember one time when I got the cockatoo for a while, remember? Then I asked Mr. Dobalina to stay home and make sure the cockatoo didn't leave.
Yeah. I didn't leave your apartment.
Yeah, exactly. So I told, and then he said yes, and then I left, and he left with me. And I said, no, you stay here. I make sure he doesn't leave. And then he said, sure, I will make sure you don't enter the room. Right. No. And then I had to keep on, you stay here. And he kept misunderstanding it.
Yeah.
Okay, the cockatoo is not to enter the room. No, not leave the room. Until, that was a very long conversation. And at the end, all three of us went together.
Keep it simple, yeah.
Yeah, so that was with personal assistants.
Yep. The worldwide network of cams, which we've discussed before as well.
The cameras, huh?
Exactly, the cameras all over the world recording everything, visual and audio. Part of the point of that is that anyone can access anything recorded at any time,
Yep.
Look back in the recent past, further in the past, confirm or find out what happened. Basically.
Exactly. See everything that was ever recorded everywhere.
Yep. And sure, the only downside of that is occasionally you'll be photobombed. You'll be looking at something and someone will like streak across between whatever, or just stand there blocking your view. Or that's if it's intentional. Sometimes they won't even know what's going on. There'll just be something in the background, what you're actually wanting to look at, that maybe you really wish you hadn't seen.
Exactly. Sometimes that happens actually regularly with the cam network.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a whole lot of people in the world doing whatever they feel like doing, which is fine, but I don't necessarily always want to see that. So, I want to check what the weather is in Swaziland. You hit the cams, and then you check a few cams in Swaziland, and then sometimes you're like, oh, okay, so this weather is really good. So that happens, I guess, with the cams. So you really have to specify or maybe have some default settings or whatever.
Yeah, we've not mentioned those, but of course you can set your preferences, like, it's pretty thorough in there. Like, for example, you'll say, I prefer this type of thing or that over that type of thing. So then when it's not clear, you'll get the one you wanted. The issue is that, that's not obviously everything that could ever exist. And so it's on the edge cases that you notice mainly the strange stuff.
True. I think one thing that I wanted to point out is what can go wrong with cyborg chips, because I think next to Congos, those have a lot of room for mistakes you notice immediately. And the cyborg chips, just for the people who didn't listen to the episode, these are chips that we have in our body, and they can influence our health and appearance and so on. So you can basically program yourself to look a certain way.
Yeah, like I always want my stubble to be this particular length.
Yeah.
For my fingernails to be a certain color, for my hair to be a certain style.
Exactly. So, and then you can basically program yourself like an avatar, but you can also instruct yourself maybe for a special occasion. I had it once I wanted pink hair, I mean, several cases where I wanted pink hair, but I remember one of the first times I said I want pink hair, and I just got a pink mustache.
Which is hair.
And it was pink.
Yep.
Didn't specify. That's what I get.
Yeah, you needed to, from then on you learned, when you want the hair on your head, on top of your head to be a certain colour, you need to specify that's the hair you're talking about.
And didn't something go wrong with your wings initially?
Yeah.
Or wrong? I don't know.
Wrong is pushing it a bit harshly, but yeah, exactly. I asked for wings, got wings really quickly. I knew in general that it takes many months, and the progress bar just zipped across the screen. I was like, oh, that's nice. But it was because I had wings about 1 centimeter across, because they were the wings of a housefly.
Yeah.
That wasn't quite what I had in mind. When I then did later, instruct more clearly. I said, big, large wings with many feathers, stuff like that. And then once I said that, it started the process, and they took much longer to grow.
I think it's also, especially when it comes to the cyborg chips, because you pay for all kinds of extra features. Whenever you don't specify, they go with the cheapest option. I guess that might have been the case as well. Huh?
Yeah, right, because that can also happen when you, summer's coming up, you want to go to the beach, so you say, hey, so you're a cyborg chip, you say, hey, give me a beach body. And so you have in mind, maybe, lose a little weight, get a bit more muscle tone, so you look good in a swimsuit of some kind.
I know where you're getting with this.
Yeah. You didn't specify what type of... Well, it understands beach body to mean a body like a beach. And then you didn't specify what kind of beach. So, I've got an English accent. It goes, okay, you probably mean an English beach. So if I were to give such an instruction, not saying I have, I end up with a body looking like a sack of rocks.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah,
that was funny.
Yeah. So you need to be really particular on multiple levels.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, okay. I guess we spoke a lot about not proper prompting, but yeah. So I guess I hope our listeners will be more aware of how to prompt properly.
Yeah.
So they can
start thinking of it now. There's other benefits, like we mentioned.
Yeah.
And then they'll have their great whatever grandchildren ready for such a life.
For some proper prompting. So get some proper pink hair and beach bodies. we also have a listener question.
We do.
We do.
Let's read. I'm going to read this one out now. Mystical Monster wrote, Hello. Magical Monster here from 21st century Denmark. You speak about food conglomerates a lot. The food sure sounds tasty, but is it actually healthy? Cheers, Magical Monster. Magical, mystical, some kind of monster.
Yeah, okay.
And sure, I can speak to that because my Congo broke last week.
Yeah.
Like actually while we were away. So maybe the replicants did something. Either way, my Congo didn't work anymore when we got back. So I borrowed one from someone else, an old one that they had left over that they didn't need anymore. Very kind of them. And the only issue, I'm not mentioning their name because although the food it produces is tasty, there's something very wrong going on where it's full of smello.
Yeah. It's the old Congos used to have that, huh?
Exactly. But exactly, really old. And this is old but shouldn't have it. It's like not that old. Yeah,
fair enough. But it's, the more smello is in there, the more tastier it gets, but it's, in my
less
experience,
satisfying.
Yeah, not very nutritious either.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So is it actually healthy?
Usually yes.
Yeah.
With a Covenant model, and not with this thing that's like an antique.
So if it's older, or I guess cheaper. I guess some of the cheap combos probably have a lot of smello in there still.
Yeah. That's the cheapness, so the oldness of the machines. And using smello especially, it makes the food so much more full of air, you know?
Yeah.
So that's why it's less filling when you eat it.
Yeah. Okay, we did speak a lot about food, so I really feel like having a chocolate pineapple pizza full of smello now.
That does sound, barring the smello, that sounds good.
Okay, so then I would say let's try to wrap up.
Yes. Folk listening to us speaking right now, please send an email to michaellasagna5@gmail.com with the number 151 in the subject. Any questions you put to us, we may even answer them in a coming episode.
Yes.
And we want you to send such emails so that we know this episode went back successfully.
Yeah, that's the reason.
That's what it's always about.
Okay. Well, thanks for listening and see you in 200 years.
Bye-bye.